The 80s, full of music, politics,
So there are very good things happening on the employment front.
football, and most importantly, motorbikes. After the chaos of cafe racers, mods and rockers of the 70s was coming to an end, the 80s saw a new wave of faster Japanese motorbike designs coming in.
Oh, millions of iconic bikes were produced in the 80s.
The challenge for motorbike companies was making a bike faster than anyone else's, and it was the advancing technology and engineering skill that allowed them to do this. Engineers were moving from an era when 130 miles per hour was the fastest to where 170 miles an hour or more was on the horizon. This surge of increasingly fast bikes hit the streets of Britain, making it easy for the younger generation to pick up a trendy and adrenaline-filled hobby.
He was nuts. He was absolutely nuts. The wrong way down the dual carriageway on the back wheel at 100 mile an hour. The 80s was brilliant for me because that was when I was growing up. That was when I was finding myself as a young man and as a man, and had lots of friends, big friendship groups, all on motorbikes, and it was just fun. It was all about enjoying yourself and having fun, no responsibilities.
I did a lot of racing. I did a lot of stunt work. I did a lot of all sorts of stuff. I had my own dispatch company at the time as well. So I lived bikes. My work was bikes, my life was bikes, and everybody I knew was bikes.
It was the start of clubs as well at the time. Not motorbike clubs, but like discos, and they were proper discos, not like what you got now. There was good music, and nightclubs with like Shalimar, Shack Attack, and all them sort of thing, and the Bee Gees. So we had a great time, and then on the other side of it, we had the rallies that we used to go to Holland, Belgium, some in France, and generally around England.
We grew up with all the racers. Everyone that we grew up with and rode with were Isle of Man TT racers, and so we all had to get fast, get quick, otherwise you got left behind, because most of the people up the front were coming first, second, thirds in the Isle of Man TT races. So it was like, that's just the culture of the early 80s, was grow up fast, and we did.
In 1904, Parliament banned racing on the roads and introduced a 20 mile an hour nationwide speed limit in the UK, so the secretary of the Automobile Club, Sir Julian Ord, travelled to the Isle of Man and persuaded the government to rescind this legislation and introduce a 52 mile per hour limit. The first Isle of Man TT race was held in 1907. The races were dominated by British motorbike brands like Scott, Sunbeam and Norton, averaging 38 miles per hour per lap. This was the start of motorbike racing as we know it today. Originally there were only two categories, single and twin cylinder. In the first ever twin cylinder race, 9 competitors lined up at the starting line, but only 3 finished the 10 laps of St John's Circuit. The winner was Rem Fowler on a Norton bike, finishing in 4 hours 21 minutes, and the second place competitor finished over 30 minutes later. Fast forward 73 years to the 80s, and big names like Rob McElner and Joey Dunlop are racing the new Japanese superbikes from the likes of Suzuki, Honda and Yamaha, averaging over 100 miles per hour. The TT is still being held to this day and is infamous for being one of the most dangerous and technical motorbike street circuits in the world.
Everyone rode a bike when I was straight from school. Left school in '77. First bike I had at school, a moped. Everyone was buying Fizzes then, but I bought a TY50, which was a control bike, Yamaha 50 moped. I bought that mainly for work because I had a job as soon as I left school. It had pedals as well at that time, and you could just do a little bit of off-roading, or you thought you could, but it used to get stuck everywhere. The biggest thing for me was the smell. That two-stroke smell, that got you going then. Once you got that in you, that's it.
Well, the first bike I owned was a Kawasaki KH250, and I brought that when I was 14. and for a couple of years all I actually did was take it apart and do it up and tune it and then put it back together and polish it. And so by the time I did actually get to ride it when I was 17, it was absolutely sparkling mint, lovely motorcycle.
The first bike I had, I came back to it, I was 6, and my brother had a BSA B25 Starfire, and he used to park it in the hallway of our parents' house, which used to annoy the hell out of my parents. But when they weren't looking, I used to sit on it in the hallway, and because it was in the hallway, I used to be able to throw it from one wall to the other, which went down like a lead balloon because there was big holes in the wall where the handlebars used to hit as I was pretending to lean it. And then moving forward, 8 years, my brother gave it to me as my first bike.
In our group of the guys, our group of bikers, we had several mechanics, trained mechanics. So we all had a very good idea of how to maintain bikes. Not everyone was as good at it as others, but I think generally all of us would actually give it a lash and see if we could actually put our bikes back together again when we blew them up.
A 4-stroke's a 4-stroke, change the plug, just kept going.
I did all my own bike stuff, did all my own mechanics. I've worked at just about every bike shop in Norfolk over the time, so I've worked a lot on bikes. In fact, I got to a point where I was so sick of working on bikes that I stopped for quite a few years because it was like, I've had enough.
There was much less technology. They were just very easy to strip down and put back together. And we were pulling them apart. Going back to what's in my fizzy, I used to probably polish the piston in it once every couple of weeks because they were all fairly basic. Nowadays, everything is done with engine management, so electronics. And in those days, it wasn't. So the average Joe in the street could actually tune their own bike and play with their own bike, which we all did.
Well, I had a Z650, Kawasaki Z650, and that caught fire under the seat. We parked up at the campsite. Didn't have no tools there, basic roll tools, and I had some plasters, and I managed to put the fuses back with plasters, and that lasted me till I got home. And it was, I think I sold it like it actually.
Although technology was advancing, the mechanical and electrical systems were still relatively simple. This was a great appeal to the young people, as fixing and modifying your own bike made it a cheap and fun way to get around. Initially, it's that drive to have your own independence, which is when you buy the 50cc bikes. But I've always loved bikes as well, so it's probably a combination of both. The community and is just something that probably drives it after you. Once you've found bikes and then you find mates with bikes, and you realise how much fun it can be.
I was pretty late to the game. I was more or less on the back of a lot of the other guys' bikes. I had my bike, but I didn't have much money to get it on the road. So I then just fell into all my friends had bikes, motorbikes, and then all their friends had motorbikes. So it quickly became my life. It's like overnight almost.
My uncle had some nice old English bikes. And my dad used to have bikes all his life. And I needed it to work when at 16. I used to have to go to work early, start at 6, and the transport wasn't that good. So I knew that I had to have a bike, and then once I got it, I just grew into it.
I think if you had a bike, I know if you met someone or knew someone that had a bike, then you're instantly you were mates, and you would immediately be able to talk about bikes. And if you were riding along and there was another bike that's going the other way, then you would always just raise your hand or tip your helmet, and you'd always say hello to each other. And that it felt to me very much like a brotherhood or a sisterhood, because there were girls obviously as well.
It's a family. It's a family, and my family is huge. I mean, at the height of, I joined a few clubs. I didn't even realise I joined the club because it was just all my friends, but it became a club, and it was called the Sunday Club because everyone used to go out on the Sunday, but then 9 times out of 10 we would go for a whole week and come back the next Sunday sort of thing, and go, because it would be sitting down and going, right, well, where are we going to go? What are we doing? And he goes, well, who's been to Holland? I ain't been to Holland. Well, let's go to Holland then. It's like, all right, let's go.
Places like Zach's and other local hangouts would be a common place for bikers to meet new people with the same passion. Having a group of mates that all rode bikes was a huge part of the culture, creating memories that would last forever.
We always used to go to Cheddar Gorge, and there's usually a group of maybe 6 or 7 of us on bikes. And I don't know if the weather has changed, but we always used to get great weather when we used to go down there. And Cheddar Gorge was the place we used to like to go, because the actual gorge itself is really a brilliant bit of road to ride down. It's just obviously full of corners and bends and amazing scenery. And we used to spend a lot of our holiday just racing up and down the gorge. And when we were bored, we'd just go for a race up and down the gorge. It was brilliant fun. I remember when we were staying near Polpero, it was just a brilliant atmosphere of all the bikers together, and you were just all mates immediately, and you would just chat. And there was I remember there was an instant or a point where like 1 or 2 guys started to put their bikes, sort of stand them up and take pictures of their bikes, as you do. I always did. You always had to take a picture of your bike wherever you'd gone. And then another couple of guys said, oh, we'll jump in on that. And then there's a couple more bikes started to get put into the line and taking pictures. And then everyone just went, right, bike shoot. And then all of the bikes in the campsite just got lined up. And there was maybe 20, 30 bikes all in a line, and all the bikers. And it was just hilarious and great fun. And everyone was just sort of just enjoying the whole atmosphere and the camaraderie, I guess.
So yeah, one and only time I've ever fallen asleep on a motorbike at high speed. I was on the A1, and I've never done it before, and I hope I never do it again, but I must have been going, I just got to the point of, I've had enough, I've reached my limit, and I nearly left the road, but I went over the rumble strips, and it went, and I woke up and just managed to throw it down before I went off the edge of the road. And the bizarre thing was I pulled over onto this side of the A1, got off the bike, just staggered down the slope into a cornfield and just went and passed out in the cornfield, thinking no more of it. So the next thing I knew, there was a guy, and I kid you not, you can't write these things, he had a butterfly net. He was a naturist out catching butterflies, saw the bike, saw that. So this guy, all dressed up in this khaki thing, like, you know, like a, I don't know, like he's going bleeding out to the Serengeti or something, leaning over me, going, I'm looking at him going, have I died? What's this? And he's going, you all right, you all right? And I was going, what are you doing? Oh, I'm catching butterflies. What? And he's going, are you okay? Yeah, I'm just tired. I think I'm going to move on though. And it was like, what the hell? You can't write this.
But the most famous meeting place of all, known for the lawless antics of its die-hard biker customers, was the Ace Cafe. First opening in 1938, the Ace Cafe catered towards travellers and truckers, but the appeal of being open for 24 hours soon attracted bikers. In the 50s, the cafe became so popular with bikers that a new subculture was born, the Ton-Up Boys and Cafe Racers. It's positioned off London's Old North Circular, which the bikers made into their very own street circuit, competing to see who can go down to the roundabout and back in the quickest time and who can put on the best performance.
I think the last crazy thing I did was a Friday night at the Ace Cafe in London, just before it became bland. So that was just off the scale, going to the Ace Cafe in London.
Oh, the Ace Cafe, yeah. I've been there a few times. Well, everyone gets a T-shirt from the Ace Cafe, don't they? And a badge. That used to be the thing.
You'd ride down there, thousands of people, loads of people doing stunts and going crazy. I think I've got it on film somewhere of someone trying to pull a wheelie, messing it up, sliding down the road, going underneath a 4x4 and jamming it under, and everyone getting out and getting angry from the car. But then 200 people just swarm in, lift the car off the floor, pull the bike out, pull the body out, and they're gone. Put it down. By the time the police got there, there's nothing happened here, mate.
Well, he used to have a dash. I think we went down to the first roundabout and back, and it was usually the first one back. And it was always wheelies, and the police were always waiting to catch people.
It's about the family. It's about having a huge family. It's about them being there for you. It's about having anything that you need to be done. People stepping out, having such a huge family of 250 plus friends, all with bikes, that will be there no matter what happens.
But the Ace Cafe wasn't the only place where crazy things would happen.
So this has been mid to late 80s. There we were coming from Yarmouth back to Norwich, down past Brundle bypass. I was on the 750 Kawasaki and my mate was on a 650 Kawasaki. The third guy, who was just bonkers, he was completely bonkers. He had now a gorgeous bike called a Z1R, Kawasaki Z1R, 1000cc bike. But it was a very long bike. He came between us. We were probably doing 70 miles an hour and he came between us, maybe doing 90 to 100 miles an hour. It just made us jump out of our skin, and obviously, stupidly dangerous thing to do. And we saw him racing straight up the hill towards the Brundle roundabout. And this is actually the truth. Then we watched him turn around and come back at us, and then as he approached us on the dual carriageway, he then just popped it into a wheelie, and he went between the two of us, like at about 100 mile an hour, on the back wheel, with his, and the thing, and me and my mate just opened up to allow him to do it. And the thing I can remember most about it is because that was such a long bike, it was just so tall. And as we went past, we looked up at the bottom of the engine going in the other direction. He was nuts. He was absolutely nuts. The wrong way down the dual carriageway on the back wheel at 100 mile an hour, whatever.
For the amount of times I've been on the road, I had one big accident. And I headbutted an engine block at 40 odd mile an hour and it knocked me senseless for a little while. And I found it hard to get back on a bike. And everyone had clubbed together and gone, oh God, he's in a bad way. I was like, what's your name? I don't know who you are. I've known them all my life and I had no idea who they were. It was that bad of like, I don't know what I'm doing. I used to do a lot of pit work for all the races, for the TT and all this. So they were all racers, they all had racing licenses and all this sort of stuff. And I got my racing licence the month before because I wanted to join them and start to do it, but I couldn't afford to do it. So I had my licence, but I couldn't race because I had no money. So they all clubbed together and went, right, we're going to Cadwell Park and we're doing a race meeting. We want you to come and pit for us. And it was like, really? I'm not really with it. Yeah, you'll be fine. Come on. Throw all your stuff in. Oh, by the way, bring your leathers and your helmet because I might need you to run the bike in up and down the paddock. And it was like, they always used to ask you. They'd all be down having dinner and you'll be riding up and down a paddock going, oh God, I've got another 50 miles up to go down to run this thing in before we can race. And he did that. He brought out this beautiful little NC30 VFR 400 that he'd made, all done out, and it had hooligans written right down the side of it because that was the company that was racing that week. And he goes, I've booked you in for a test round. And I was like, whoa, no, I've ridden Sydney Grand It's too late. I've booked it in there, so you're going to have to go. So they sent me out, but what I hadn't noticed was they were all there for me. No one had booked any races. They'd booked I was racing in 4 races and 4 practice sessions, and they were all there to pit for me. And I came back in and he took me to one side and he went, the bike's going to be scrapped after this. We only built it to put you on here to get you going. Run the ragged arse off it. And it was like, really? And he went, I don't care if you crash it and smash it. It's all getting taken apart. And it was like, and as soon as he said that, something went in my head. And I went on to win 3 trophies. I was the fastest newcomer of the day. I went bananas. But I ended up coming back from there a completely different person to who turned up at that racetrack because didn't want to get back on the bike, didn't want to do that. And after that, it was like, I'm off again. I'm done. I'm ready. Thanks for fixing me. I'm going.
Yeah, I did like it. I liked all of the scene, all of it.
The craziness and the things people would think up to do seem to be on a big scale. Now it's like, should we go to the coast? Should we go to the CAF? Should we go? Let's go right to the end. It's like, I missed let's do something crazy. What are we going to do?
Yeah, when I think about it now, it was all good time.
I miss being 18, yeah. Or 20, or 25, yeah. Because it's certainly that the bike experience coincided with the growing experience of growing up. So it wasn't just the bikes; it was everything as well. Finding girlfriends, finding beer and drink, finding independence, and doing it all with mates. Because I think the bike culture kept us together as mates. There was a group which all revolved around the bikes.
I wish I'd have bought a water bottle, a 750, a kettle, a Suzuki GT 750. That was the real game changer. That was the only bike I really, really wanted, and that was just out of my line, my budget line. But yeah, I'm sure I'll get one eventually.
For many bikers of the 80s, this love affair still continues to this day.
This is a GS6R, Suzuki GS6R 1000 K1. It's had a few modifications done. So I've put higher rental bars on, which makes it easier to do some stunts and stuff. Because usually they have drop handlebars race bike, but this was my stunt bike. This was. I think it's the exhilaration of the speed, and it's also the freedom of the road. Just go for miles and miles, and you're on your own with your own thoughts and stuff, and it's just second to none. Love it. This will do about 175 mile an hour, maybe a little bit more, but it's been there a few times. I have taken it racing a couple of times as well. It's just to remember you're alive every now and again, so whenever I take it out, it's like you go out for a long ride on it and it's like, I better put it away for being naughty. You can't help yourself because it's just fantastic feeling being out on this thing. It's a bit of an animal, but I love it. So you can be at home and everything's going south and you're in bad mood, you've done a hard day at work, and and bills are paying, all this. You go out on the ride and it's just forget about all that, and you come back relaxed and feel completely different. You can change most of your moods depending on how you ride the bike. So you can go out for a sedate ride and come back just mellowed, or you can go out and you'll come back absolutely wired and go, that was brilliant. It just changes everything. You can have an argument with your missus, and 10 minutes later, after going for a mental ride, come back and go, all right, bub, I'll make the tea, and it's all different again. It's a great mood leveler. Love them. Never get rid of them. I will die on one, most likely.
With a more risk-averse society and bikes becoming more expensive and dangerous to ride, it's unlikely there'll ever be another decade of biking culture like the 80s. Whether it was the thrill of independence, customizing your own machinery, or going out and roaring through the streets with your mates, the 80s will always hold a special place in many bikers' hearts.